All right. Hey, everybody. This is my first Product Hive uh, as an attendee and a speaker remotely. It's kind of weird, but happy to be here. Happy to share some thoughts today. Good to see so many familiar faces on the Zoom as well. So thanks for coming, guys. Let me got a few more pages to scroll through. Hello, everybody I know. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. All right. I'm Blake. I work at Divi. I've been at Divi since December of last year. Um, GM and senior product manager. I live in Salt Lake. I love to cycle. And after 6 months of looking, I finally found a freaking house. So it is a brutal market out there, guys. And that is enough about me. Let's dive into the content. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, thumbs up. I'm sure everybody can see it, but just a quick thumbs up from anybody anywhere. Most people have their video off. Stephen Walter, thank you so much, buddy. You got me. All right. So the topic of that we're going to talk about today is why PMs should learn sales. I pretty frequently get asked by people, prospective PMs who want to break into it. Hey, like, what do I need to know? Help me like figure out what skills I need. And there's usually a certain set, right? There's like, you need analytical chops, design skills, deep empathy, all the stuff that we would usually say. But one of the skills that I have found myself only recently kind of talk about is sales. It's probably the most underrated skill product managers can have. And it's one that we don't really talk about, especially to prospective product managers. At least I've never really seen anything out there. So today we're going to talk about why that's a big deal. Anything else I want to say there? No, that's good enough. Always be closing. So why do sales skills matter for PMs? The simple fact of the matter is that the PMs are GMs. So I think we all need to elevate ourselves and basically give ourselves promotion outside of just like people who ship software to like actual owners of what our product area is. We need to actually think about the holistic picture, revenue metrics, go to market, everything related to our product area. We can and should be owners. So PMs or GMs is a huge tenet of our product team at Divi, and this is what we strive for. So we're going to talk about what that actually means, but I'm going to be a little trite here and say that any idiot can ship software. Like I'm purposely being hyperbolic, but like truly, like figuring out like timeline and like, hey, this is what we're going to go build, and this is like when we're going to build it. Like that's a fine skill, but we have project managers for that. If you want to be a true product manager, if you wanted to be a true GM, a true owner, we need to get beyond that. So this is the hierarchy of kind of PM and skills in my mind, which is at the most basic level, you need to be able to project manage. You need to be able to ship software, right? You've got to execute. The next layer of complexity on top of that is knowing what the right thing to build is. So that's takes you to like, okay, these are better PMs who like really know how to dig in, do discovery, build the right thing, and of course they can ship on time and reliably as well. But then the next layer on top of that is GM. So I know I can build the right stuff, I can actually execute on it, but I also own the outcomes, I own the P&L, I own the go-to-market, and I am truly an owner of my product area. So this is kind of the evolution of how I think about that. Now, let's see. It's going to be kind of hard on Zoom. Maybe I'll like pause. Usually I tell people to just interrupt me for questions, but maybe I'll just pause a few places for questions as we're going through. So as you're thinking of,
just in case there's someone who don't know, what is a GM?
General manager. Thank you. A few years ago, there was a lot of talk about PMs are the CEOs of their product. And obviously, some people find a lot of fault with that. It's not a perfect analogy. I think GM is probably a little bit better of a fit, but the same idea. You are an owner of your area and you need to own it fully. So you need to be thinking about as you're shipping, how do I build a viable business out of what I'm actually building and delivering? Other questions you could ask yourself as you're thinking about projects, as you're thinking about things to build: will this sell? Does the customer want it? Is the market actually pulling this out of us, or are we going in search of something? And then, is this going to deliver the outcome we want? Outcome being the actual business outcome. More revenue, higher win rate, lower loss rate, increased contribution margin, decreased customer acquisition costs. There's all sorts of business metrics that we as PMs need to elevate our thinking to and really be strategic about what we're delivering to the business. Because ultimately, we are handed, $1 million or so every year of resources, and we have to be the best stewards of those resources. Resources being engineering, right? We've got expensive engineering time, and we can't just ship features. We can't just ship software and have that be enough. We really have to think about what we're doing and how that's affecting the actual business. Another skill is storytelling. I think salespeople are pretty good at this. If you were to ask my wife, I'm not a great storyteller myself. This is something I'm trying to work on actively. I tend to elongate the story way longer than it needs to be and tell way too many details, and then I get to the punchline and it's not actually as punchy as I want it to be. So I'm trying to get better at this, but I think we've got a lot to learn from our sales counterparts on how to tell a good story. There's a good quote by Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz about storytelling. I'm not going to read it. I'll allow you to read it. I'm going to pause for a second and give some commentary after. Okay, storytelling is an underrated skill. Again, this is something I'm trying to get better at, and I think we can learn a lot from our sales counterparts. But as we're deciding what to build, as we're deciding the strategy, we really do need to tell better stories. I think this is something I've seen across the board from a lot of PMs I've worked with. We need to be able to tell the narrative, and I think sometimes as PMs we allow that narrative to come from the executive team or from sales leadership or maybe product leadership, and we can feel kind of stuck in the strategy that's handed down from us. But first of all, you can always set the strategy and tell the story of your product area, no matter what, right? You are an autonomous product manager. You have full control and flexibility within your product area to tell a compelling story. But what I found is if your story and if your narrative and if your strategy is compelling enough, the organization will move around you and kind of rally around that story. One of the best people I've seen do this is on the call today, Gentry, who I've worked with at Instructure before as well, who's just so good at telling people this is what we need to be doing, and this is what we're hearing from customers, and this is what our story should be, and going exactly directly to leadership, to the executive team, and them totally being yeah, that's right. It's actually pretty surprising. All right, here's some more why you should bolster up your sales skills. As I already mentioned, we need to be great sales storytellers. We need to be able to persuade. We're constantly selling and pitching ideas, both internally and externally. As you guys know, we don't have any hierarchical authority to say what we're going to do. So it's all about pitching and selling. Despite some bad examples, salespeople are generally pretty good at listening and listening to objections and trying to overcome those. And that's something that is very core to our job as well. And then advocacy. I'm sure you guys have all been on the other end of a Slack or a Zoom or an email of sales bros saying, hey, we've got to land this deal. The customer needs X, Y, or Z. And they will just muscle these things through the organization. And they just have so much advocacy for their client and their customers, which is in part, of course, driven by their need to bring home the bacon. I believe that if you were able to do all of these things really well, you'd put yourself automatically in the top 20% of PMs in Utah. So we looked at that triangle hierarchy. I think this is the same deal. If you can do these well, you're going to be a top-notch killer PM. Okay, now I'm also going to do some surveys. I've got two specifically. So go to slido.com, and the participant code is there. And I'm going to ask you a few questions. We're going to do this twice, so bear with me. All Let's come here to Slido. All right, you should still be able to see my screen. So QR code, or go to slido.com. There's the participant code. But I'm just curious, how many of you have a sales background? I do not. Nobody on hell yeah, I did summer sales. Oh, okay, there we go. I fit into that camp. Summer of 2011, I sold, and it was the worst summer of my life, and also the best summer of my life. It can be weird that way. Okay, that's good enough data for me for now. Now, next question. Let's go here. How many of you sat in on demos and sales calls? I think our participation here will be pretty high of those who have, but I'm curious to see. Okay, so most have, a few haven't, and then do I have, oh yeah. Next question. How many of you have gone on site to visit a prospect? This is a prospective customer, somebody who hasn't signed with your company yet, but is evaluating the company. You're going with the salesperson to go help close the deal. Wow, this is a narrower gap than I would have thought. Interesting. So one bit of commentary I'll give here is, for those who have said no, you should absolutely find the time to do so. Again, once we can travel and the world resumes kind of a normal sales cycle. But there's a lot of benefit to you as well as to the salesperson to have a product person come along. Now, you're not going to come along to every deal, and obviously there's budget constraints sometimes, but there are certain deals where it makes sense. The deal is big enough. The client needs to be heard on a few different things. It means a lot to the clients to have a product person come out, and hugely rewarding experience from an empathy standpoint for product managers. So if you can, try to push for this, try to get budget. If for whatever reason you're not able to find this from leadership, funny, instead of going to your manager, the VP of product, why not go to a salesperson? Maybe somebody you already have a relationship with, a trust with. Hey, what accounts are you working on in the next few months or whatever? I'd love to come out with you sometime. And I've had it where sales department will actually pay for your travel to go out if they find there's enough value for a product manager to go out. So that could be one avenue as well to secure budget if you're not able to. Hugely impactful. And again, salesperson will be very grateful. Customer will be very grateful for you to come out there with them. So wasn't expecting this much of a margin, but I'd highly encourage, or this little of a margin, I'd highly encourage all of you to go out if you can. And if you can't fly anywhere, again, because of budget, try to find something locally, even if it's a small deal. It'll be very impactful, I think, to you. Okay. Hey, Ash, one housekeeping thing. I see some chats come in occasionally. Just let me know if there's anything I need to pay attention to, because I can't see it that well.
Yeah, I'm watching it. There was one about some stat. The metric was surprising to me. I'm not sure which one Brand is referring to. I'm guessing the last one that you commented on as well, about going on site.
How few people have gone on site, yeah. Yeah, very surprising to me as well. Definitely go do that. Let's make that a first thing. Although I guess we're not really traveling, so first thing as soon as we can travel. Okay, we're going to talk about the relationship between sales and product and sales bros. I'm generally pretty flippant. I think there are not a lot of product people who have sales backgrounds. Tyler Hogue, my boss, does, and you can very much feel it from him. But it's really good. It's really opened my eyes to how well product and sales can work together. Typically in my career, I've seen quite a bit of tension between the two. Right? Sales says, hey, product isn't doing X, Y, or Z, or this is what we need, our customers need. And product saying, no, salespeople don't understand, and they're only looking at the prospective customers. There's, of course, our current customers. There's the market. There's all these other inputs that we typically look at. And so there's usually a little bit of tension there. I'm putting this in here just because it's great. It's a screenshot from an account on Instagram that you guys should go follow if you don't, called Hold My Fry Sauce. It's just like a parody account of Utah Tech. But man, Senior Director of Sales at Podium, Chad here. Typical sales bro. So at Divvy, I've probably seen the best example of close alignment between sales and product as departments. And it starts from the leaders at the very top. And I think the fact that our VP of product, Tyler, has a sales background has been tremendously helpful in making sure or allowing that like we have that really tight alignment. And our head of revenue knows like very well that Tyler cares about the business metrics. He cares about revenue. That we as product managers are all driving the same revenue metrics, which we'll get to here in a little bit. And so there are magical things that happen when sales and product are tightly aligned. You know, in enterprise SaaS, which a lot of us in Utah are in, there can be a lot of, hey, we've got to close this deal and the client needs X, Y, and Z features. Can we do it? And usually that conversation will happen like at the director level. Sometimes it'll get graded to like the VP level. And at that case, there's been instances in my career where like they've gone to the CEO, VP of sales, and says, hey, product won't build X, Y, and Z, and we need to close this deal. There's no way we hit our number this year if we don't. And CEO basically has to be the arbiter and say, okay, do this. And then, you know, CEO dictates the roadmap. But I found that if you've got an alignment between sales and product, the conversation moves from sales saying product won't do this to, hey, we jointly agree that, you know, these are our metrics and this is what matters. So we're actually not going to build X so that we can build Y instead. So we're not just saying no, but we're actually saying yes to something else because we believe it's more strategically important. So this is a very, very important thing to have. You've got to have that trust from the very top, be aligned, and then you know, you as a PM can become really good friends with AEs and reps, and I think that'll go a long way. And then one practical tip here that I've seen work well, I think it's important for product to meet with sales leadership on a monthly cadence to review a stack ranked or prioritized list of their top 10 feature requests. So this is helpful for a few reasons. Salespeople generally have recency bias. So of the, let's say like, you know, 30 most recent deals they've worked on, they'll generally like bring up the requests that have happened in the last 2 weeks or so, last month. And it's good to kind of hold them to account and give them a little empathy for your job as well and prioritizing and stack ranking. And then that way you've got a list to go off of and there's no shifting because sometimes salespeople, again, because of recency bias, will shift from like, oh yeah, we said X was really important, but actually now it's Y. You know, they're constantly, they've got pipe and they've got deals and that's always changing as well. So I think it's helpful to have some of the prioritization and stack ranking onus on them. So there's a practical tip. I recommend everybody go do that. Okay, now we're gonna do another survey. So we're gonna go to slido.com again. This time we're gonna use a different participant code because I am on the free version and apparently can't have a bunch of other questions in one thing. So go to Slido. I actually need to open it right here. Okay, Slido.com. Here's the participant code. Here's the first question. Have you ever had a sales rep promise something to a customer that wasn't actually in the product? I suspect we'll have a lot of yeses here. It's good to see that there's some no's. Must be a really great sales team. Okay, I don't think the numbers are going to change that dramatically here. This happens all the time. And whether or not it's intentional is up for debate. Frankly, sometimes reps will say stuff is in the product just to close the deal, right? And that's what they're incentivized to do. So it's kind of hard to blame them. And it does make all of our lives harder, especially if you're a CSM, right? Because they were sold on having X, Y, or Z feature and they get into the product and actually it's not there. And then the CSM is kind of caught in the middle. That's a very hard position to be in. And I've seen that happen quite a number of times. But it's really hard for everybody. And this frankly is something that salespeople need to get better at. This is something we all need to work at to try to make sure that it's very clear to customers what we do and do not have. Okay, let's go to the next question. Have you ever had to prioritize a feature in order to close a deal? Yeah, this isn't too surprising to me. And I don't think the numbers are really going to change that dramatically. This is where I think that if there's tight alignment between sales and product, and if going back to the example of like, okay, we're not going to build X because we know we should actually be building Y. We're okay saying no to money right now because we're actually saying yes to kind of our North Star or our strategy. I think if there's tighter alignment, we'll see fewer of these feature requests be demanded in order to close a deal. But even still, I think there are some cases where it actually is appropriate to build features to close deals. Some cases. Now, I don't think that's all the time. And actually, we still should be trying to close, like the metrics are more important than the actual deals themselves. But I think we'll see a lot fewer of these feature requests coming in from the sales team in order to close a deal if we're more tightly aligned. Okay, that's cool. All right, let's keep going. So I want to end my presentation with how this works at Divi. We've talked all about like the theory and like, yeah, you should be a GM, you should learn sales, we should be aligned with sales. But I want to make this a little bit more concrete. And we're not doing it perfectly either, right? This is a process, but this is probably the best example of my career where sales and product have been really tightly aligned, and product people, me, are empowered to own numbers. Okay, so at Divi, the executive team for 2020 came up with 5 metrics in order to grow the business. And these are the same metrics for the revenue teams. These are the same metrics for the product teams, for marketing. Everybody is rallying around these 5 metrics. And each PM owns one of those metrics. And the next slide will show you the exact ones. But they're all business metrics. Like none of them are actually product metrics. They're not engagement metrics. Like these are things that are growing the business. And each PM is actually compensated based on hitting those outcomes. So for me, my metric is to generate a certain amount of revenue for my product this year. And I have equity or stock incentives if I hit my goal. And then the last point is, yes, we build delightful products, delightful experiences. Yes, it's important for the craft of product management that we like build what the customer wants and will be great, but we're also building the business. And those aren't mutually exclusive. You can focus on business metrics and still create an extremely good product experience. And so I want to call that out as well. Just because you're saying yes to the business does not mean you're saying no to the customer. So these are our 5 metrics for this year. Improve or increase contribution margin, lower our customer acquisition costs, increase FAS, which is short for verifiable addressable spend, which is just a metric we track. Increase spend. So Divi, we're a corporate credit card. We make money when people swipe their cards. And so we want people spending as much as they can on their Divi cards. And then my goal, which is down here, is for the first time we're introducing paid products at Divi. Traditionally, it's been free because we make money on interchange. So we haven't charged the customer to use the card or to use the software, but we are introducing a premium or a paid tier, and that's what me and a few other PMs are working on. So we have, I believe, 9 product teams and 5 goals. So there's a few PMs jointly own each of these 5 business outcomes. And the projects or the stuff that we're actually building roll up to these goals. So I'll show you in the next slide an example. Here is a screenshot of a Google Drive sheet, a Google sheet where we're tracking all of this. And I've taken out the actual numbers, but you can see in the far left-hand column, we've got prioritization. Like, so there's the number 1 goal, the number 2 goal. and we've, as we saw, contribution margin and CAC. We've got our actuals on a monthly basis. We've got our end of year goal in one of the columns. And then in the far right column is the initiatives and tactics. So this is where our projects come into play. So I, as a PM, say, okay, I am going to build X, Y, or Z feature because we believe, or it is our hypothesis, that it will move the needle on increasing our contribution margin. So we've set out all of the tactics and all of the things that will actually lead to that outcome. And as you see in parentheses, that may change because there could be projects that and opportunities that come in that'll help us get to that faster or in a better way. And so this is helpful because we're all aligned on what the metrics are. We can see the actuals, and the CEO knows that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. But product owns the far right column, and it's subject to change. And what we do is we meet with our executive team every 2 weeks as a PM. So for my product area, I have what's called a product review every 2 weeks where I've got stakeholders. It's essentially the board meeting for my product area. And so if things do need to change in that initiatives and tactics column, that's where I update the CEO, the executive team. We talk about things, we've ratified the decisions, and all of that happens, or everything from the initiatives and tactics is kind of driven by the product manager and then discussed in product review. And if things need to change or morph, that happens in those product review meetings every 2 weeks. Okay, I'm almost done. So one of the criticisms we hear pretty often, and it's valid, if you incentivize PMs monetarily to just hit these outcomes, isn't that going to be short-sighted? Aren't the PMs just going to build whatever the customers say so that they can like close deals, so that they can increase revenue, and then you kind of end up with like a Frankenstein product that isn't cohesive? It's a real concern, and this is what we're doing to mitigate it at Divi. So first of all, you have to pick the right outcome. If it's too long or broad of an outcome, it's going to be hard to like get attribution for your projects to that outcome. If it's too short-sighted of an outcome, it might be hard, like if we say, in next month, we're going to increase revenue by 10% from this feature. That might be a little too short-sighted to see really the fruits of your labor come to fruition from what you're building. So you really do have to align on the right outcome and make sure it's not too far, it's not too long. Now, this is unique to Divi, but I think it helps us, particularly that we mostly serve SMBs. And so there's not a ton of like, this big deal just came in, we have to push it through. We generally are able to do what's best for all of our customers. And then even if you're an enterprise, it's still important that you move the metrics and not certain deals. So that's why the alignment with sales is important. We're all moving these metrics. You saw our R5 in the previous slide. And some deals might help us move these metrics, but we really do need to focus on the metrics and not specific deals that might be big, especially if they're bad deals for us, right? Like maybe they want the product to be something it's not, or something we're just not able to execute on for a year. So we should feel empowered to say no to those deals because we're trying to move the metric. And then another unique thing to Divi is we only make money when people spend on their credit cards. So if the product is bad or shit, as I say here, people aren't going to be willing or excited or incentivized to spend. Like our product needs to be great so that people love it, so that people want to use it, so that people want to spend. And so for us as product people, we're highly incentivized to create great long-term outcomes and products that will also grow the business. And then the last point is that all of our compensation is equity and stock-based. So again, if I hit my revenue number for 2020, I'll get equity and stock. And this is obviously a longer-term play. This isn't $50,000 in cash for the year. And so it's not, hey, Blake, go build this feature and we'll give you however many thousands of dollars, right? So I think that helps drive that longer term alignment in the product. And with that, I am done. I will now unshare my screen and take questions. Or not.
Awesome, Blake.
First, I'm going to take a drink of water, though.
Any questions for Blake? I'm watching the chat as well.
I have a question that I'd like to bring up, and that is,
Hey, Aaron.
hi, Blake. We've had a recent discussion in our company that sometimes there's features that we just need to build because they look good in sales demos and just to close a deal, whereas it might not actually help the user experience. And there's been some big opinions on both sides of that. I'm interested to get your take on that.
Aaron, you're going to have to repeat the question because I was too busy looking at the chat. I'm so sorry. Say it again.
Oh, it's fine. There's a lot going on over there. So we've had a long discussion, not long, but just a heated discussion recently in our company about features that might need to be built just because they look good in a sales demo. It might need to say, look, we have, a direct competitor is killing us in this, but we've done some, usability testing and that sort of thing. It doesn't actually help the user experience, but it does help, the buyer persona be convinced that this is the right product. I'm interested to get your take on, is there value in building features that are just simply sales can point to in demos and say, look, we have that? Or should we fall on the side of, no, let's actually build a good user experience that people want to engage with and use?
So I would say it's generally never a yes or no. I think it can be yes and also yes, meaning yes, we can and should build those things, but also that doesn't mean that we're not building a good experience for our users. It's kind of situational to what is on the other side of that, we want to build these things for users equation. But generally, I think you can do both. And I think it is worthwhile to build stuff that is kind of demo candy or will help sell as well.
Yeah.
I don't always think that those are mutually exclusive.
Okay, so follow up then.
Yeah.
You've given the classic, it depends, right? I mean, every product question, it depends. So what criteria do you use to say, in this situation, yeah, it's good to build a sales demo feature that might not actually help the user experience. In this situation, it's not. Do you have sort of a criteria or some questions that you can go through in determining that?
So I would say first, set your North Star metrics, right? The one we talked about with Divi, those are the metrics we want to move, and evaluate where you're at on the user experience side of things within the product, and see if those align. And then lastly try to find a way, if possible, to build whatever sales demo candy feature that would actually port over to the end user experience as well. I feel like Gentry would have a much better answer here. But if you want to find Gentry, Slack him on Product Hive, he'll give you a better answer because he's fantastic at that. That's what I'd say.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Blake. Hey, this is Mike Stores. Hey,
Hey, Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm on the air. Hey, so I get the. I mean, I love it. I love the perspective from the product side of it, right? From the engineering side of it, I'm curious to see how your teams are actually aligned to the PMs. Are you actually working with a single team as a PM? Because it seems like in this GM type perspective role, you would have to cover a lot of the product, right? You'd have to be able to cover the experience of the customer through a wide range of features potentially. And so, now you've got engineers across that may be working on several different features. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to figure out how you guys are aligned up and how your engineers actually go build to these features. If there's so much, so many technical areas there that they need to understand, you may not have the team that you need to go do what you need as a GM.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd love thoughts on that.
So I only have one team, and every PM at the Divi has one squad. And I can see what you're saying about if your area is too small or if it's not big enough to effectively move the needle. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I'd take a step back and again evaluate those higher business metrics, bring those to the product team, and figure out how you within your area can move the needle on those. Because I think you can still be a GM with one squad, and even if it's not like a standalone product, you can totally build stuff within your sphere of ownership as a GM to go move the needle on those metrics.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And then you guys continue to own the features over time, right? So
yeah,
I mean, obviously that's part of the normal process of maintenance. And
honestly, more than anything, it's just the mind shift, because we haven't really aligned the teams any differently at Divi. And there's still teams that own, in my case, I own kind of a whole product that is revenue generating, but I also own kind of particular features or areas within our main product. And nothing from the engineering side has really changed other than PMs are now empowered to be GMs, and we should think about like actually hitting those business metrics. Really, it's taking the conversation from like, oh, I want this much engagement to like, no, we should grow revenue by X or increase whatever by whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really just a mindset shift more than like an engineering or like organizational shift.
Totally. Love it.
Cool. Any other questions? Let's just have maybe one or two more. Or not.
I mean, it looks like a bunch of people have been asking, going some back and forth in the chat. So
Yeah, there's quite a bit going on there.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Hey.
as you can tell, we at Divi really care about this. Feel free to message Gentry, myself, Tyler. Make sure to hit him up on Twitter. That's where he spends most of his day. And yeah, we're happy to chat more about this with any like specific use cases you have.
Awesome. Blake, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I think Jeremy's going to share his screen now, and we're going to do a random draw here for the 4 gift cards from Divi. Again, just a big thank you to you, Blake. And are you okay with people reaching out through Product Hive, Slack, or any other?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, awesome.
Cool. Thanks again, Blake. Really great job. And thanks, Divi, for being willing to host us and throw out some gift cards out there.